Alright guys, I guess Fridays are for working on transaxles. So here we have the remains of 2 or 3 rear ends that I had laying around. There's the guts of the other one. The reason, as you can see, bolt's broken off in it. And what was wrong with the other one? Oh, the other case, the bolt hole's broken out. So you can't even put a bolt in there or tap and drill it. So what we're doing, we're going to lock this guy. This is going in Crusty. But this right now currently is an open differential, which as you can see when you turn the one, it turns the other axle the opposite way. So all you have to do is you go around and you loosen all these bolts up. And this is out of a later one that's spline shafts. So you take the 2 spider gears, put them on the same side, and just do it back and forth. So these guys will be right here together. These ones, I'll switch this one, have it on this one, and do that. The older ones only have 2 on each side. So you'd have 2 here, and on the other side there'd be 2 over there. This one has 3, which doesn't make it any better or worse. I do like these axles more, and if you ever take apart an older one, this ring gear is actually not as beefy. And you can't transfer this axle with a bigger, better ring gear into an older one. And this guy that corresponds with that one right there, or am I lying? Yes, I am lying. This one here goes against the ring gear here. So this gear, the stack of gears here, that one's different than the older ones. And I do believe it's completely different till, I think these are the same, these ones here. But I could be wrong. You'd probably be best to just stick with the same generation of rear end. If you have a spline one, get another spline one for parts. So I took the best out of both of them, and I just had enough shims laying around. I had a bunch of extra parts for these, and threw a bunch of stuff away because I kept looking at it, kicking it, got tired of it. But luckily I had just enough of these shims, which these are important. You have to put these back. If you don't put them back, there's too much slop in here. When you put it together, you can't silicone it. You have to put the gasket so you have the correct distance between everything, so you don't, when you tighten it all together, you don't sandwich everything. Ben McQuillan, or McQuain, I don't know how you say your last name, so sorry if I butchered it. When you can't get it in and out of high-low range, it's this guy right here. These are what I call detents. And inside here, which you can see the little hole, on the other side of that, like imagine this hole drilled straight into this part here. There's a spring and a ball inside there. If you would take this completely off, the shaft out of that, which you can, the ball falls out and then there's a spring behind it that you have to fish out through this hole. That's the only way you can get the spring in there, is through this hole, push it in, put the ball in, push this down through. When you can't get it in and out of high-low range, it's because these guys right here are full rust and all corroded and pitted up, and that ball can't move. So that's what happens right there. And that little guy goes between these 2 gears like a shift fork, and as you shift, it just plunk. That's neutral in the high-low, and then that's high, and vice versa. That could be low, actually. Let me think about that. Yeah, that's low, neutral, high. And all you're doing is changing the smaller gear to the bigger gear, sliding it up and down on this so it intersects another gear. And the same with the front. You have them again. But these ones are always moving. People leave something in high range all the time, and then that's why that one back there gets rusty. Also, it's high and dry. Both of them are high and dry, but that one these get worn out more because people use them all the time. But this one's high and dry. The fluid level is usually below it, so if you have water in there, it sweats, this gets full rust, then no bueno, you don't have any high-low. And this is how you can get into trouble when you buy one of these tractors and it's stuck in 2 gears, like I say all the time. Because you can pop this up, pop the other one up, and then it's stuck. And then this whole thing just stuck. Nothing will turn. So that's why it'll make a bunch of noise and go crazy and probably does shear something off, but I've usually had luck. If they're stuck, people can't ever, it usually stalls the engine before it breaks something. Oh, another key point. These are the shims right here for the diff, or the ring and pinion, whatever you want to call it. And they just slide on. But these guys have the little keepers on them, so you can only put them in one way. So they can't move around, I guess. So as you put this down in, when you slide the whole assembly down inside there, you gotta keep them in mind, because if you try putting it down like this, per se, then you'll be wondering why it ain't going down in. Well, you got them in the wrong spot. So they gotta be like that, so nice and flat. If you have them parked this far, you got to clean this stuff up. I have the part numbers for the seals. I wish I had them down here with me so I could share them. But I can comment them if anybody is interested in them. But next step, I will switch these around and come back and show you what it looks like when it's locked, so you know what to look for, or you can see how to do it. But it's as simple as what I normally do is just loosen all of them and then do them 2 at a time. Put the bolts on hand tight, go to the next one, hand tight, and then once it's all together the way you want it, then you zap it all together. Then I usually clean all this stuff, put it all together with no seals in it, and then clean everything, tap the seals in, and then put your pulleys and your brake band pulley and your hubs on. So let me swap that to Posy, and with the magic of video editing, we'll be right back in a second. And we're back. So this is what it looks like once it's locked. See, now they're not zigzagging back and forth. So you just put 2 next to each other, 2 next to each other, and 2 next to each other. If you just do it on 2 of them, it'll lock it, but I just did it on all of them the whole way around and just alternated back and forth. But now you see, when you turn to one, the whole thing just turns. There's no movement to that other shaft. So the gears just lock each other up, and then that makes it to where you got Posy. And these spline ones you normally never sees, because like I was saying in another video, they're just always sliding back and forth, so they just polish themselves up. But now all I have to do, I think I have to take this gear off. It's been a while since I put one of these together. Alright, and we're back. So we're going to show you how to get the axles and everything in there, the difficulties putting that in. I normally put this all together so you can twist the first gear and you can see everything moving, make sure everything works. Shift the gears, that way you know all this is good. Remember your shims, but this is what you do to get it back in. Get the final piece in, I should say. You have to take this part out. Keep in mind where your shims are. And then this one's the fun one. I normally just pop it up, keep it all together like that. Then you can get your big honking axle assembly. And remember that washer with the ears on it? You have to keep that placed perfectly like that, make sure it's flat. And I do this on a bucket, so you can put the axle the whole way down in. Show them. So the axle goes down in the bucket to where it's not interfering with anything and everything stays nice and flat. Poke your nose in there, bub. See, we still have the shim in there on the very bottom of that, and I just walk it back over. And you make sure your little fork over here is in place as well. Then you can spin everything, make sure it's still spinning. Everything is. And now that that guy's in there, you can check that your shim's still in there. Remember the orientation, you had your gears, and this will slide. There's spacers and all kinds of doodads. So I usually, when I take these apart, leave everything as assemblies. As many assemblies as possible. They really can only go in maybe 1 or 2 different ways. You can't really mess it up. Now that you have it all together, you can see we must be in reverse. Or I'm spinning it the wrong way. This is what the engine would do, spinning. So everything works and we're locked. Now you take your other shim and you'd have to put it the opposite way so the little ears go into this guy. So that would be facing this way. You just drop that off. If you're looking at it like I am, you just put the little ears at 6 and 12 o'clock and they'll be completely clear. They'll have all kinds of room to do what they need to do. So now we're going to get this all cleaned up, and I'll show you the part number on the gasket. I do have that, and we'll put these two together so it can set all night and dry, and then tomorrow, if I have enough seals, this bad boy is going into Crusty. So let me grab that stuff and we'll be back. Alright guys, we're back. So I cleaned the mating surface, wiped it down. We're going to put some Indian head shellac on there, which I really like this stuff. I use it all the time at work. It's old-timey stuff. Just gives it like a little sticky, something to glue it in place. I didn't want to break the case, so I didn't even mess with the dowel pins trying to transfer them to this side. I'd like them to be on this side, but you just gotta do what you gotta do. So you just coat it to where it has like an even brown color to it, coffee color, whatever you want to call it. And I looked and looked and looked, and I could not find the part number tag for the gasket that goes around the perimeter. So if you go on the Sears Parts Direct, it pops right up, or a simple Google search, it'll come up real quick. But I coat both sides of it. Come on, Jeff, you're boring the people. Damn dowel pins.
Now, how much of that stuff do you use? Does a little go a long way?
It's like a little cotton swab. It does go pretty far. I haven't dipped it in again. That's why I like it. It seems to last forever. It's like $4. If you talk to other people, oh, that doesn't work. You want the high tack from Permatex. Well, it looks exactly the same. It does exactly the same. It's just Permatex owns it, so you pay more. The gasket has it's connected on the top part, so once it's together and bolted, you just cut this out with a razor blade. Pretty simple. If you're in this far, I'm pretty sure you can cut a gasket. But just get it moderately lined up. If you try to make it perfect, it ain't gonna happen. This thing's been on a shelf for freaking decades, because only idiots like me tear them apart. Now, since the dowel pins are messed up, we gotta go into my bag of tricks. And inside here is a bunch of bolts for the diff. Out of many that I've stripped and parted out, I guess. Now what I do is just where the dowel pins are, if this happens, put the bolts through. Give her one last gander. Make sure you got everything in there you want it to be in there. Biggest importance is the shims. Don't worry about fluid, because this thing will freaking work with water in it. That's been proven enough. So you just flip it over. I don't worry about the seals until the very end. Somehow I'll try to find the hole. I always have that problem. Then you slide it down. And now that we have them bolts in there, you use them as the dowel pins, which are just longer dowel pins. Keep sliding down. Once those are lined up, make sure they're lined up. Now my dowel pins are lined up. Now this side over here is down, but this side isn't. I think it's mostly that dowel pin. Ouch. Okay, we closed the gap. Alright. Let me gather my hardware up because that'll be boring, and then I'll come back to you guys. Alright guys, you saw that we got the case together with my trick with the bolts. So we're going to go around and tighten them all up now that we know that it's nice and tight. And once you get it nice and tight, we're going to see if it spins and does what it's supposed to do. And I did tighten some of these up before we came back to you guys, just to make sure that everything seemed gravy. We got them all, boo? I don't think I got this one. Nope. And then we got the brown stuff oozing out everywhere, so that means that we got her good. They have your bolts tight. And getting the seals out are easy as can be. I might make another video of that, just putting the seals in. So now, if you look at this, I think I just put it in high third, so it spins more. But as you can see, everything is turning. Get close, can you hear that? You see, if you don't put the shims in it, you'd have a lot more end play than that, which would be really bad. See, there's play in that shaft. There's very little in that one, you can't hear it. But, so there we go. Now if you go into my box of tricks again, this is what pokes out the side of your rear end transaxle. This is what attaches to your high-low lever. Thank God the seal's in there. I was hoping for that. This seal, you can buy it. I don't have the part number on me. Or do I? No, I don't. But that one's so high, it's right next to the vent hole. It's not that much lower than the vent hole. When you actually have this in the tractor, they're about at the same height. So it's really just sealing off water, or by chance if grease gets up there. So it's not necessary to change that seal, at least I wouldn't think. But this inside the rear end, a lot of times this is deformed and rusted up, as this one is. Somebody bent that open. Maybe I did, I don't remember. But you can just put that in there, and it actually threads in. It engages on that high-low, like so. Well, maybe not like so, it doesn't want to catch. There we go. They're not usually tight, but this stuff's been sitting around, so it has a little bit of like overspray and grit in it, everything. But there you go, now you could put it in high, or no, that'd be low. Put it in low or put it in high. It's hard to pull it by hand. You get the idea. And that's pretty normal end play there. So everything's good. Now this one, if you spin them both axles spin in the same direction. So now we got a rear end for Crusty. Because the one that came out of him, the hubs, I got one hub off, but I had to really heat the thing up. And I'd rather have the splined hubs because they seem to be a little bit tougher. So that's where we're at, guys. And tomorrow, if all goes well, we'll get the seals put in. And we'll be putting this in tomorrow. So talk to you guys later. Hope you enjoy it.